Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the Versatile Hewlett-Packard Enterprise webinar. I'd like to introduce the CEO and co-founder of Versatile, John Barker.
Good afternoon, everybody, and once again, I want to thank you for spending some time. We know everybody's time is valuable, so we appreciate you spending a few minutes with us today. As a next-generation partner, we strive to develop and deliver the best services and solutions to our customers. And whether that be in information technology, managed services, consulting services, or pro services, or applications development, and certainly procurement. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. You know, we feel it's incumbent upon us to kind of venture out and make sure that we're understanding how our customers want to consume their services and solutions from an IT perspective. And we think that there are several different changes in the marketplace that are showing us different models on how to support that and how we do consume and how you consume as customers. So again, it's always our mission to go off and understand what those new models may be and try to present those solutions to our customers. And so one of the things that we did want to talk about today was different ways to consume. And in a few minutes, I'll introduce Aaron Kaplan from HP Financial Services. I think a lot of us who've been in the business for a while traditionally have looked at financial services as leases with typically dollar buyout or 3-year fair market value. And I'm here to tell you today that that's changed quite a bit. HP, for such a large company, has a financial services side to it that's very innovative, and I think you're going to find a lot of what Aaron has to talk about today to be very useful as you start to think about how you consume and manage your procurement and services and solutions moving forward. So I think without further ado, I'm going to introduce Aaron Kaplan, who is the Director for HP Enterprise Financial Services, who is here to discuss a multitude of options available for you from HP Financial Services. Aaron?
Great. Thanks, John. And let me go ahead and bring the presentation up and just let me know if everybody can see it, or if you could just give me that we're ready to go. We good?
Yes, we're good.
All right, thank you very much, Tim. Again, thanks everybody for investing your time out of your busy schedule to attend this presentation hosted by Versatile. My name is Aaron Kaplan. I'm the Director for HP Enterprise Financial Services, mid-market and SMB segments. I also have responsibility for our channel partner program. Like John said, today we're going to be looking at different IT consumptions. I'll set the stage for what brought HPEFS to look at this and some of the innovation and R&D we've been doing over the past 18 months. There is a question bar, I believe, on the GoToWebinar, so feel free to send in questions that way, or we can have a question and answer session at the end of the period. So everybody's talking about transformation, right? Transforming IT, transforming businesses. You know, the big question, and the one that gets asked to us quite often is, can a customer transform their IT environment without transforming how they acquire it and how they use it, and allowing for flexibility in the future? And that's what we'll talk about today. So you know, when we talk about today's environment, it's moving faster than ever, right? There's more business uncertainty, there's fiercer competition, there's higher stakes. But I like to look at this this whole idea of change as this tends to put a risk view on it. I think there's tons of opportunity out there. And there's tons of opportunity for those folks who can, one, recognize it, but then two, can act and seize the opportunity before anybody else. So we'll be looking at different acquisition models that will allow flexibility of the environment and then be able to react to those business opportunities when you see them. All right. You know, some background from the corporate executive board in a survey they did last year said 63% of business leaders feel their organizations are too slow to exploit those opportunities we just talked about. So we're seeing wide acceptance of this point of view. The old rules no longer apply. Right, like John said, you're familiar with the basic lease models. We're all familiar with the purchase models. Believe it or not, I still talk to customers that have 5-year and 7-year depreciation schedules on their IT, and obviously those long-term depreciation schedules really box customers in from being able to be flexible to adjust their environment to the current business needs. And they, based on what they've done in the past, they feel like there's a very limited set of IT acquisition options, right? People typically get an annual budget, then they have to issue requisitions against that budget, then they actually have to place orders against those requisitions. The orders have to go through the sales channel to the manufacturer, they get placed on the manufacturer, they get shipped, they get installed, they get implemented. And we have some customers that have told us that their deployment schedule, their acquisition and deployment schedule can take longer than 13 weeks, right? Greater than 90 days. Well, how does that help? Especially if we're focused on business opportunities, how does that help one grab those business opportunities and take advantage of it? And those outmoded procurement models are no longer fixing the need to have a flexible IT infrastructure. So Hewlett-Packard Enterprise is doing a lot of work on transformational areas. Products are being built with increased flexibility, whether it's a composable infrastructure, whether it's a software-defined data center. All products these days are being built with inherent flexibility. So what we've done is we've actually now modeled the financial aspect to those same things that are being created in the hardware, software, and where you see the intersection of hardware acquisition and services, is we're seeing a lot more pieces of technology being implemented in an as-a-service model. And that's where this, you see the new business models and solutions being created. Another data point, this time from IDC, right? By the end of 2016, 50% of companies will demand payment models based on usage for major IT and data center investments and basing their vendor decisions on these programs. You know, when I first saw this slide and I first started to try to understand it, my initial thought was, okay, this says there will be a lot of movement of traditional IT acquisition customers to a cloud-based environment. Well, I think the pendulum started to swing that way, but based on sales calls and customer meetings I've had recently, I'm seeing more and more customers looking to bring the cloud-like economics, but bring it back in-house. And a couple of reasons, and this was just a meeting I had on Monday that this customer shared with me, is they couldn't believe how out of control the the pricing and the economics of the cloud solution was, right? Their ability to just turn it on and turn it on and turn it on and turn it on and turn it on led to explosive financial growth. But then I started hearing about more of the technical limitations that this customer was seeing as a result of the cloud service provider not necessarily being able to provide the type of system they required for their workload, whether it was more memory or faster disk, and they were really being forced into a one-size-fits-all model, which didn't meet their needs. So part of that discussion was really about how do we model some of the great things we're seeing in the cloud environment, yet still bring it within our own control and within our configuration. And HPEFS has done a really, really good job allowing customers to have that control, yet still take advantage of the economics. So we're calling, right, the generic, as we talk about these little models, we're calling it IT consumption, right? So we're really looking at the ways customers acquire and consume. We just talked about business outcomes and business controls, and the focus on our ability to meet the different applications, infrastructure, and networking requirements. So we really want to focus when we begin dialogues with customers, because there's different levers we can pull to create the best custom solution for our customer base. We want to talk about business outcomes, and we want to talk about these different levers that our customers want to have control over, right? Whether it's service duration, contract obligation, how we're going to measure and what the units of consumption are, what's made up in the solution, right? Is it just a server? Is it server and disk and software and networking? Is there a service component? What's the customer's expected usage, right? Do we see tremendous growth on the horizon that we could plan for? Do we see we're unaware of what kind of growth is coming, so we want to remain flexible? Or do we see the possibility of needing some less requirement in the future than we need today? And lastly, another level we pull and we customize for the customer environments is, what does that risk-reward model look like in terms of flexibility needed versus the financial benefit of that risk. So these are all different pieces that our financial account managers get involved in with you in your in this case Versatile, to help develop the best financial solution and IT consumption model to your requirements. So one of the things we're helping customers do is to actually monetize existing IT assets. Do you have, as you go through this transformation, do you have money tied up in your existing infrastructure? Do you need a gradual path to transition from your existing purchase infrastructure to a as-a-service infrastructure? And would you like to move? And not all customers, by the way, you hear a lot about CapEx versus OpEx. We still work with quite a number of customers that still want to maintain a capital structure. So we have ways to provide the flexibility of procurement, but still maintain that capital structure, or help move to an operating environment and an OpEx structure. So what this slide says is one of the ways we can monetize your existing cost of operation is to look where you're currently spending money. And if you're spending money and as an IT department you treat depreciation as an IT expense, If we could identify $15,000 a month of expense, we can translate that into $500,000 of new buying power. So if you've got a combination of a depreciation expense, an existing lease expense, an existing maintenance expense, some customers like to include power, HVAC equipment and expense into it. I tend to see those as smaller contributions. But if you're spending $15,000 a month or greater, it's a linear equation. If it goes to $30,000 a month, that can be freed up to actually free up $1 million worth of purchasing power. Does that give you the opportunity to double your storage capacity with today's price performance of storage? Does that give you the ability to reduce the number of servers, yet put in more powerful servers and use some virtualization approach? Or if you don't want to free up the full amount, does this give you the opportunity to actually reduce your monthly ongoing expense? So we've got ways to transform and fund your transformation utilizing existing expenses and freeing up and monetizing the value in your current asset base. So when we talk about specific IT consumption solutions, this is the page where we go through the various solutions. So you can use an IT consumption model to optimize your business operations. We just talked a little bit about how a transformation, and we can accelerate the transformation, and then we can improve the agility for your evolving needs. So as we get into specifics, I like to go from the top to the bottom, or what I think addresses data center solutions and complexity down to different solutions we have on the desktop. So if you look on the far right-hand side of the screen, I think the premier solution we have in the data center space is flexible capacity. And that's an offering from HP Enterprise's technical services organization. It's an actual technical services contract that includes use of hardware. It includes metering and monitoring. It includes data center care, and at the premium level allows the flex up and flex down capability. So for customers who have the need for bursts of additional capacity and additional throughput, this solution gives you the ability to burst up on a monthly basis, but it also has the ability to come back down after those needs are no longer needed. We also have a similar program, but it's meant to be an in-the-box program as opposed to a data center program. And that one's not on here, but it's a capacity on demand. We still have capacity on demand available to us. If you look at the top of the column on the right-hand side, pre-provisioning, this solution is targeted for those customers who have large deployments and also have the challenge of within their current acquisition model having those long deployment cycles we talked about earlier. This gives us the ability to take, and we can go from desktop to data center in this environment. We actually procure the equipment in advance of what your needs are, and we only begin billing you on the equipment that's deployed and used. So it's actually kind of a consignment strategy in that we put the equipment at your locations, and then we begin the billing on as it's turned on. What that allows us to do is put up to 12 months of commitment on your site and get a very, very quick time to market through this pre-provisioning mechanism. And where we've seen it work is we've seen it work in desktop deployments. We've also seen it work in server and storage deployments. So if you're looking at a project that's going to take a significant amount of time and you want to get a jump start on the acquisition, but you only want to utilize or begin paying for that equipment as it's lit up, pre-provisioning is a great solution for you. As we look in the far right side, we start going down this, actually in the middle section we could talk about deferrals and pay-as-you-grow. If you have a good feeling for what your deployment schedule will look like, we've got the actual ability to get that equipment in, get it installed, and then schedule your payments to grow over time. So a great example of that is if you're deploying 30 terabytes of storage, but you only see needing 10 terabytes in the first 6 months, then you go to 20 terabytes in the second 6 months, and then you don't see utilizing the full 30 terabytes to month 18, we'll go ahead and put it in and install it. Schedule your payments based on that deployment schedule. But the beautiful thing is you have access to all 30 terabytes up front and can use it up front without your payments changing at all. So I like the pay-as-you-grow approach because it helps you manage budget cycles. It still provides the incremental value up front. Other solutions within this column, accelerated migration. This allows us to come in and actually buy out your existing assets. So if you're undergoing a tech refresh or transformation, we'll write you a check for those existing assets. And then if there's a transformation period, we'll actually rent those back to you. And at the end of the transformation period, we will remove them from your site and take them out. That paired with the deferral actually allows you to put new equipment in and not have to worry about double payments. As we go to the far right side, please look at the subscription offering. HP subscription is our ability to provide an as-a-service environment to the desktop and the servers. For a single monthly charge, you will have the ability to use the designated hardware, bundled software, and any services that are included in the offering for a single monthly charge. It's meant to represent and look like a cell phone contract. So it's strictly paying for as a service. When you combine that with the flexible asset return, we also have the ability to actually take back or scale back over a period of time the number of servers or desktop you're deploying. So nice combinations of a bunch of different approaches on this slide. I think we covered most of those, but if you've got any specific questions, we can answer those on the question period. So IDC recently has reviewed our IT consumption point of view and consumption models, and they like it, right? So this is third-party validation, somebody who's come in from a consulting viewpoint, look at what we've done innovatively, and actually are recommending this to our customers to take a look at to see if it fits their needs. Transformation areas, right? For those of you who've worked closely with Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, you can see we are organizing our solution capabilities around these three areas. The first one is helping customers transform to a hybrid infrastructure. That's looking at a tech refresh of existing data centers, what you will insource, what you will outsource, how those applications will work with and speak to one another. There's also a practice focused on protection, that being security as well as backup and recovery, enabling workplace productivity, driving solutions to the bring your own device generation and bring your own device environment, focus on generating mobility applications and helping customers continue to increase the productivity of their people, and then empower, looking at big data and big data implementations. And I really think this is key for customers to seizing business opportunities coming out of the new idea economy. So we're going to get into a couple of examples of what we're doing with customers along the lines of IT consumption. This is looking at a global financial institution, and we're helping them accelerate their IT transformation, right? So this global financial institution had an IT budget deadlock, right? They had a pretty high-profile data center transformation initiative going on, and they had a very aggressive turnaround time for results. Well, most of those seem like everybody's environment. So what was the approach determined, right? Well, one was freeing up and monetizing their existing environment, assessing the value of their existing data center. Then we helped to align their financial strategies and their investment strategies with their IT strategies. And then we were able to come up with a solution that funded their transformation, right? Buying out their existing assets. So that was a multi-million-dollar cash infusion. It gave them the funding and the budget to jumpstart this transformation. And because we provided a financial solution to match the technical solution, there was a long-term very, very strong working relationship developed with that customer and the selling and IT consulting team. This next one is from a media and telco provider, right? So what was their unique challenges? They had different business outcomes depending on the department. That's not so unique. We see that one all the time. They needed a quick hardware implementation. They wanted to manage the contracts centrally, and they wanted an IT usage model. So they wanted the ability to measure and charge back. And then the corporate was pushing the various business units to develop new revenue streams. So what we were able to do was actually come in and help them focus on solutions that met the departmental needs, provided them the funding to provide those flexible solutions, and then in this case, this was the early return of servers, actually structure the ability to, as they put new systems in and they didn't quite size their original sizing correctly, we were able to early terminate and take some of the services back. And that's the type of flexibility that customers are looking for in today's IT consumption environment. So the last example, right, is a service provider example, focusing on UK universities, right? They needed to be able to react quickly to their customers' needs, and there was no way to predict from a student perspective who was going to stay in and who was going to drop out. And again, we created and helped the customer understand the real-time data needs, but also created a flexible financial model to pay for the solution as a service. So they had the ability to grow when needed and when flex down when needed. So this was a university IT environment in the UK. So as we come down to the stretch, right, the future belongs to the fast, and you could either look at that as risk avoidance or opportunity seizing, right? And to me, it's not only the future belongs to the fast, but it really belongs to the flexible. Who can adjust their IT environment more quickly to meet the business conditions, to meet your customers' needs, to get to understanding what business outcomes you want to achieve to get there faster. And again, when we talked about those different IT acquisition models, those are different ways where we've married a technology solution with a financial solution to allow you to be fast and flexible. I think we've got time for questions. Which I do find it's the most valuable part of these things.
Yeah, and I was just going to take a minute, Aaron. This is John. Thanks so much for putting that together. I think there is an awful lot of options, and as you know, as a partner of HP's and others, we work pretty closely with you guys on some of these opportunities and met the flexibility kind of requirements that our customers kind of have today. You know, one thing that Aaron's probably not going to spend a ton of time on is necessarily is third-party support. I'm not sure he mentioned it in there, but even though it's HP Financial Services, understand that we can wrap up an entire set of solutions, including those that are not necessarily HP. That's right, Aaron, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, John, and it's a true strength, and we believe that's a strength of our partners, that our partners like Versatile are able to bring multi-vendor solutions to the table. Of course, we think HP Enterprise has the best solutions, but we also understand that there's different components of a solution that customers require. So we will wrap within these different IT consumption models HP solutions, hardware and software, third-party solutions, hardware, software, and what we really like is we've got the ability to include services. So as you're trying to deploy and get this down to an as-a-service model, we can bundle it all up and through Versatile provide those solutions back to you.
Yeah, that's great, Aaron. And I also did want to mention just to the audience a couple of ways that we've kind of done that with customers. And you know, I think Aaron went through it all very well. And certainly we have helped customers in terms of particular projects. Maybe it's a new massive expansion, a new expansion of a warehousing or a site like that where customers got an awful lot of capital already invested into that kind of a development and would prefer to put off to some degree the IT costs associated with outfitting that new facility. So that's just one example where we did a deferred payment type of situation in conjunction with the customer in HPEFS, and we're able to put off an entire, really a complete large-scale, multi-million-dollar deployment off for almost a year. So the customer could kind of concentrate on making sure they get their business in order and not have to worry about their IT consumption there as well. So, hey, Tim, just one question. Can the audience ask questions at this point, or am I just going to go off some of the ones I've received here?
Yeah, you go ahead and go off the ones that you've received there.
Okay.
John, just to add to your point, you know, I want to make a point for the audience. You know, much like you work with the Versatile people and their technical architects on helping to understand your technical objectives and help you develop a technical solution. Really what HP Financial Services brings to the table are financial architects or financial engineers. And I know I threw a bunch of solutions up at you, but really to get our team involved with the Versatile team, we can we could create the best IT consumption model based on those different levers I talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Aaron. And I think, again, this is John. You know, HP gets it, right? We're all going through, and I mean all of us, going through a transition around, you know, how we evaluate all of the money in IT spend that we've got to put forth for our businesses to justify it, to manage it, to try to put the predictability into it that is often difficult, as Aaron talked about, in terms of this new cloud consumption world that we may live in. And so how do we as IT professionals make sure that we've got a handle on all aspects of that? And I think I never would have thought of anything finance related being engineered, but I think Aaron is spot on, and that's really what they've done. And I think, you know, HP has really taken to heart on the financial services side the fact that people are changing and have different requirements from what they may have had in the past around how they get projects in support of their IT spend managed, and I think that's a big part of it. So I did have a couple of questions here, and I think this is Aaron. You can help me with them.
Absolutely.
The first one was my company doesn't lease. Can you speak more to usage models? Are there any savings to be had by leasing versus purchasing outright?
So absolutely. So when we get into the topic of the solutions on the subscription side, right? Those are usage models. Those are strictly based on usage as a device as a service or server as a service. So those are strictly usage models. They are not a lease. So that's part one of that question. Part two is, are there any savings? So when we look at our tech refresh approaches, or our, you know, what formerly has been called a kind of an FMV approach, where our customers are only paying for the time they use the equipment, you will see anywhere on a 36-month basis, anywhere from about 12 to 18% savings on a present value basis. So in other words, because we own the asset and we will get the asset back at the end of its useful life, we will invest that 12 to 18%. So that's money the customer isn't paying. The other thing, and again, I'm not familiar with the tax laws of your specific customer base, but oftentimes there's also sales tax avoidance, that instead of having to pay an upfront, you know, here in California it's 9.5%. Instead, we actually put the tax on the payment, so there's a significant upfront cost reduction. So we're able to actually, and the other piece is, because we're spreading the cost or the monetary payment piece over multiple years, we're actually able to extend a customer's purchasing power. Where we're seeing a lot of that play these days is actually in the school district environment, in where schools used to be able to purchase all their needs within their annual budget. Well, because district budgets have been cut back so much, they're actually looking to do more financing with us to spread the costs across the useful life, or from a business point of view, over the expected return of the project. So customers are saving significant amount of money that way.
Excellent. Thanks, Aaron. And you may have answered this, but it's kind of a more, I guess, a direct question related to leasing, which we know is sometimes thought of as an evil word to many of our customers. Are there any savings to be had by leasing versus purchasing outright?
Yeah, so there's that present value savings I just talked about. There's the
Yep.
the sales tax savings. There's also, right, there's a real business benefit in a business preserving their cash. And if you really think about it, cash is the hardest thing for a business to generate, right? It's what your people do. It's what your intellectual power does. It's what you've got to go sell to your customers and get your customers to pay. And cash is the most flexible thing a business can have because you could use it to buy companies, you could use it to hire people, you could use it to pay the utility bill. So I think there's a actual big benefit in preserving cash and allowing and utilizing an IT consumption model like Hewlett-Packard Enterprise offers to fund your next IT projects.
Super. I think I had another one here, Aaron. It was, and I think this relates to a lot of people, right? I think many of us would probably consider we might have a few white elephants in our data centers or throughout our enterprise. And the question is, my current infrastructure is old, and we would like to update it, but it's not fully depreciated. Is that something that HPEFS and Versatile can help with?
Most definitely, right? And it's very important to understand what those factors are as we build out the solution, right? We talked about engineering the financial solution, and there are ways for us to address existing depreciation as we formulate a transformation solution for the customer base.
Excellent. And then, this is a good question, Aaron, because I think a lot of the customers, and I'm sure some in the audience, may have their own existing relationships with their bank. Now, why would they consider working with HP Financial Services versus their current situation?
Sure. So, same discussion we just had with cash, right? Cash is the most flexible resource available to a company. If you think about it, your bank line has the same type of flexibility, is that you can use it on a myriad of different things. But once your bank line is used up, typically it's very, very hard, especially in today's environment, to get additional credit and additional line available. What we're able to do through, what I call is manufacturer financing, is we're actually able to help customers expand their credit capacity as opposed to deplete it. So if you could preserve your cash, preserve your bank line for other strategic initiatives, but you're going to work with me on just one thing, right? That's going to be IT and your IT transformation. Now what you've done is you've added to your credit capacity, you've added to your ability to apply financial resources to your environment as opposed to deplete those resources.
Right, absolutely. And I think one of the things that's been important to our organization, Versatile that is, and we've worked very closely with you guys for many, many years, is that I think what you can bring to the table also is kind of cradle to grave, right? I think when people think of HP Financial Services, they immediately think of leasing hardware, right? And hopefully we've educated you a bit more today about the fact that it's an awful lot more than that. And there is quite a bit more, and we could probably spend an afternoon talking about all the other services that come out of HPEFS, but there's disposition services that are there's life cycle, and I think one of the things you may not get out of your existing relationships is the fact that we can take on all that old equipment. We can obviously give you fair market value for that equipment. Now roll that back into the purchases of newer and better solutions. I think, as I had mentioned before, around third-party stuff can also be rolled in, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention that certainly professional services. So if you're engaged with us in a large project and there's a significant amount of professional services or consulting services, that all too can be wrapped into these solutions as well. So I think one of the key words that I would take away from this is flexibility. And guys like Aaron, who actually is not a paid actor, he's very much available to have these discussions around financial engineering. And I would encourage anybody in the audience to feel free to engage us. We'd be happy to get either Aaron or someone like Aaron involved in a preliminary discussion around what kinds of needs you may have, or if you feel like, I think as in one of the examples that Aaron gave, that company kind of felt like they were dead-ended around a budget. How can we get creative there? What's on the books? What's there that's old that may be reworked? How can we find some creative ways to shake some things out to help solve some of the problems that we know many of us are facing in our IT challenges? So I think we're just about out of time. Is that right, Tim?
That's correct.
I think if you have any further questions, I think we have a slide up, and we'd love to certainly hear from you. Most of you, I believe, have representation from my sales field force, and frankly, pretty much every single one of them was also on this call because we understand the value in educating. So they're certainly up to speed on these solutions, and we hope that we would engage you, and we certainly appreciate your time this afternoon. And thanks again, Aaron.
Absolutely, John. Thanks for the opportunity to your customer base. Thank you for participating, and we look forward to helping you through your next challenge.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that a recording of this webinar will be posted on our website under the Webinar and Video tab under What's Happening. Thanks for attending.
Thanks,
Thanks all.